Welcome to Talk Purpose and Truth, shifting you into higher consciousness. A show that elevates, uplifts, and encourages listeners to grow, heal, awaken, and evolve. Eden and Kim include bold topics, interviews with inspiring guests, experts, and celebrities, intuitive readings, channeled messages, mental health awareness, and hot topics to expand your awareness.
So we're extra excited to learn from Brandy. So I'm going to tell you about her. After making her own miraculous recovery and leaving behind her wheelchair, walker, and cane, Brandy Gillmore has become a globally recognized expert in mind-body healing. She has demonstrated the healing power of the mind live under medical equipment. Due to these unprecedented results, her work has been featured in several documentaries and a prestigious medical journal. Brandy has also delivered a mind-expanding TEDx talk and spoken to audiences worldwide. Today, she works with top celebrities, CEOs, and amazing individuals across the globe, teaching them how to transform their health and their lives. And additionally, she regularly guides volunteers to use their own minds to release pain in a matter of minutes on her award-winning podcast, Heal Yourself, Change Your Life. This allows everyone to witness firsthand the incredible power of our minds. So this is just, we've never had anyone like you on. And so we're so fascinated. We've done 200 episodes and never had anyone like you. So that you're a phenomenon. So welcome.
I love that. And I got to tell you, I've done so much work in this space and I've never seen anybody's work like me either. So it's fun. Yeah. It's unique and it's beautiful. So thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to be here.
Absolutely. And you both have beautiful energy. So thank you for.
Thank you. The dog. Now the dog's barking.
The dog has.
Well, I have a question and then I'll mute while he's barking. But I wanted to know, first off, can you share with us what's your story and how you got here? What led you to become the healer that you are and to learn, everything that you learned, to do all that research? What happened?
Absolutely. Honestly, this is the last thing that I ever thought that I would be doing. I used to work in technology, telecommunications. So I used to do network engineering and operations. And then I was injured. I had an accident, and technically 2 accidents. I had a car accident and then I had a fall, and I fell just wrong, just right, however you want to say it. But basically my whole life changed overnight. I went from living a full life to being wheelchair, walker, cane, on morphine every day for over 6 years, in extreme pain. And that was my life. And my doctor said that there was nothing they could do for me. They had done like nerve ablations, infusions, injections, all of that, but they said there was nothing they could really do. And so that was my life. And it eventually woke me up.
Well, and so it gives me hope because I've had off and on major weird health issues due to breast implants, and I took them out. People know in the audience, like I had them taken out, but it's like, weird detoxes and different things. And so it gives me hope to know that it doesn't have to keep going, because it has been 7 years also, off and on, through 7 years. And so what led you, like what happened then? Because most people would just accept what the doctors say and go, all right, like, I guess this is my life. So what led you to find the solutions and become the healer you are today?
Absolutely. I would say that I was in this flow of, basically I was in this place of just waiting for the next doctor and the next doctor. So when one specialist said we can't help, I was like, but let me speak to the next one or the next hospital. And so I was in that state. And every time I'd leave the doctor, I'd literally just ask for a referral anywhere. And basically I ended up going to this research hospital and I got to be part of this study. And I thought my doctors were able to get me into it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get my life back. And so I counted down the days to this study, like a kid counting down the days for Christmas. That's what it literally reminded me of. And long story short, the day came, my friend wheeled me and took me to the hospital, and I'm getting prepped for this procedure. And the doctor, he comes in and he's got this look on his face, and he looks at me and he says, Miss Gillmore, I've re-reviewed your chart, and upon assessing you, you're not a good fit. We don't expect you to get better. And I was crushed. I was crushed, and I felt like I swallowed a tennis ball. Like I just was choking back the tears, just trying to be okay. And I just wasn't. And I left, and I don't remember the ride home. But the next memory I have, I'm laying in my same bed. I have all this pain, and I don't even want to live. I'm like, what is the point? Like, I can't live like this. And then this voice or thought comes into my mind, and it's like, well, what about the placebo? And that was pivotal for me. It was like, well, there's a known fact that a certain percentage of people can get results from the placebo, which is purely a fake pill, a fake treatment. And so it made me start to question the mind. And the more that I went down the rabbit hole of understanding the mind, I mean, I started finding research that somebody with multiple personality disorder can have different ailments when they're in different personalities. And so it was just, it put me on this journey of saying, but what, how does this work, and how to get results with the mind?
Wow, that's amazing. And so is this all your own like study and research, or did you go get any kind of like certifications or things?
I'm sorry, is this all my own research, or did I go get what?
Was it downloaded to you, these methods you have, or was it based on research or certifications, or how did you find this?
Tons and tons and tons of research. I would say I was studying everything from neuroscience to quantum physics to Louise Hay to Florence Scovel Shinn to medical journals, and years of medical journals, and looking at, how multiple personality disorder and seeing and then biophotons, energy of the body. Who knew it was a real thing? A lot of people think energy of the body is just a spiritual notion, but it's been medically proven and medically discovered, and it's even in databases, that like a database between Harvard and the Smithsonian. There are new studies all the time on the energy of the body.
Wow.
And so well, yeah, and so it was a lot of research, and then trial and error.
Okay. Yeah. So what was it like your first time like working with yourself, or like when you saw results, working with someone, working with yourself? Like, when did you go, wow, this is something? Like, what did you do, and how did that work?
Yeah, I would say this. I mean, results that's an interesting question, because I had been doing like all of the things. So after I saw the placebo and found the placebo, I thought, well, it's because of belief. And every bit of data kept saying, well, you just have to believe you're already healed. And so I tried for years to like convince myself I was already healed, and that wasn't working. And I was still really in pain. And then I started finding research that kind of, to give you an idea, I started finding research that showed that it wasn't all about belief. And for example, there's something called the open label placebo, which is where both the doctor and the patient both know it's a placebo, and it can still get results.
Wow.
And so,
Wow.
yeah, so I was like, well, wait a second, it's not all about belief. So long story short, I had been meditating in theta state and hypnosis and all of these things, and affirmations and gratitude journal and positive. It wasn't working. And, I could have some results, and but it didn't change my life. It didn't heal my body. I could get my pain down. So when you say the first time I had some results, I mean, I would say that periodically doing all of these things could bring some results, but it didn't heal my body. It didn't change my life. It didn't give me my life back. What I would say did was when I started to really realize that I had to identify the specific negative emotions, and also that there was a specific combination of emotions. I would say those were really pivotal insights.
Okay.
Wait, I have to mention something.
Okay.
So,
me too. Okay,
well,
you go first.
so it's interesting. This is actually a guest we just had on, Ariel, and she's a healer. And I just worked with her right before this call, and we were trying to figure out, like, because I've done so much work too, same thing. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not better. And I'm better in many ways, but not all the way better. And she said, we narrowed it down to old feelings of a mixture of fear and anger. based on certain emotions and things that were trapped from long ago. And so there's still breakthroughs and work I need to do around that. But it was like, oh my gosh, that's like where it's coming from, the root.
Okay. Interesting. And can I ask, can we explore that?
Yes, please.
Yes, help her. Please help her.
So if
She
I
needs help.
ask you in like your personal relationships, if I ask you if you also have a pattern of feeling like you give more and you give more and you give and you feel hurt and not fairly reciprocated or not, if I ask you how much you have felt that in your life.
Not really, not that much with that, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, bingo. And if I ask you, you have kids?
Mm-hmm.
And how many kids do you have?
I have 2 girls.
Bingo. Okay. And, bingo. That, bingo. You're okay with, are we okay going down?
We're a very open book in this show.
Okay. So first and foremost, I can see how much you absolutely love them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a part that feels a bit depleted inside on self. Are you familiar with that?
I mean, sometimes I'm good at self-care and relaxing, and then sometimes I feel like that.
And then I would say also there's a feeling of guilt that's connected to that when you do feel like that. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
So I would say that that's what I would say is the thing.
Okay.
So that's what I would have said, because I can also see, like, if I said on a scale of 0 to 10 how much you love them, I would say about a 50,000. So then I would say it's almost like when you do want time for yourself or whatnot, there's a feeling of guilt attached to it, or like you're bad for wanting time for you. Is the feeling that I see.
Yeah.
I think you also have the guilt for not feeling good a lot.
Yes. That's the huge one. Yes. Because I'll feel like I can't be there 100%.
Yeah.
Well.
Like she's missing her kids' stuff.
Exactly. And I would say it's part of the pattern. And let me explain. So part of what I had is, so part of what triggered my health was the events of 9/11. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the events of 9/11, I wasn't there, but I was on the phone with coworkers who were there, and they were, screaming like, help me, things like that. Right.
Wow. Okay.
So then there was a part of me. So I mentioned I worked in telecommunications, and so when I worked in my office, we had televisions on every pillar in the entire building, right? Because we always had to know current events. So then after 9/11, every pillar around was all playing return, like the footage over and over. And then also like the red, what terrorist zone are we in, red or orange, or, that. Yeah. Right. And so I was sitting there working on my computer with all of that constantly. And so basically what I had is this. So I had a pattern of both expecting to die. That was like, okay, well, it's like I couldn't pay attention to it. So it was building up. And then also wanting to go and die and save others. It was like I grew up Lutheran, and Jesus died it was like a thing. You're supposed to die for others. And if you don't die for others, it's not very great, and so even though I had gotten away from that whole upbringing, it was very ingrained in me as a child. So anyway, so long story short is that my pattern, this trauma of wanting to die and expecting to die was part of a bigger pattern. Okay. So basically, if you think about it, when I was talking about my injury, I said I had so much pain, I didn't even want to live anymore. Mm-hmm. So it all became part of the same pattern of all of it, wanting to die, expecting to die. It was all the same through line. Does that make sense?
Showing up in the physical for you.
Yes. Now, the thing of it is kind of like this. I worked with somebody the other day who had a feeling of feeling like she was never enough, never going to be good enough. And she was just never going to be good enough. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That started in her childhood at a very young age. Then she was a healer and she was sick, very sick. And she had this strong feeling that she was just not good enough. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it was part of the same pattern. So it was, to illustrate it another way, would be this. We've heard before that, a woman can have an abusive father and leave him and find the abusive boyfriend, boss, spouse, et cetera, et cetera. That pattern continues.
Mm-hmm.
Our lives work in patterns more than people realize. And
Yeah.
so if you think about it, I had fear pattern that I didn't even know. Like if you asked me if I was in fear, I would have said no. Like I had no connection with being in fear. Like that, I would have thought that was ridiculous. I was more concerned about them, not me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would have
That's fear.
I would have never identified with fear.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just wasn't, I mean, I didn't even know I had emotions when I worked in technology. So, I mean, it was not, so I would have never said, oh, I have fear.
Yeah.
But my point is that a lot of times the illness can trigger the very thing. So if you think about it, I went from having a fear and I thought, I didn't even know I had it towards 9/11. But then I had this accident that then brought up all the same feelings of expecting to die, wanting to die. And then if you think about it, being injured, my whole life fell apart. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. So my fear went down or up, way up. And so it was the same pattern. And so I would say you feeling guilty about not being there as a parent is not being able to do things because you're sick, is also you feeling guilty because you have such demands on yourself to be the perfect mother and whatnot. And that's what I see in your energy as far as affecting.
Do you think it could be ancestral? Like, because we were talking about how my mom had the same exact thing happen, and then she wasn't able to be there for me that much when I had my daughter. And so then I basically end up with the same symptoms and situation as my mom now.
But I would say this. I would say that, kindly said, I would say that there was a part of you who was really upset with your mother about not being there. And so now it becomes an intense emotional trigger for you that now you're so hard on yourself because of that. So I would say that it's perpetuating the pattern.
Yeah. I see that.
Yeah.
By the way, if I ask you, do you have any physical pain right now?
I just feel overall like off, like I'm detoxing toxins out of my body.
So if you there's no physical pain. If you touch any part of your body, you don't have any physical pain right now.
My neck.
Your neck. And what's your level of physical pain in your neck right now?
5.
Okay. Bingo. Okay. So if I ask you just for a moment to breathe, and is it okay if we just go through a quick process?
Yeah, it's great for our audience. I'll be the guinea pig.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So I'm going to ask you just for a moment to breathe. Bingo. And I want you to notice that feeling of how you felt really upset with your mom growing up, and that feeling of feeling like she wasn't there and all of that hurt, right? Okay. So I'm going to ask you just for a moment to breathe. And I'm going to ask you if you'd be willing to let go of that judgment towards her and towards yourself. And give her understanding and compassion, and give yourself understanding and compassion. And I'm going to ask you if you'd be willing to let go of that completely, to give her understanding, to stop being mad at her completely, 100%. Could you do that?
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
0 upset towards her at all.
Yes.
And 0 upset towards self at all.
Yes.
What? No.
Okay.
0 upset towards Kim at all.
I can't.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you to breathe. 0 upset. You got to be nice to Kim.
Yes.
Promise?
I promise.
Great. And I'm going to ask you to breathe, and 0 upset and judgment towards mom anymore. 0. No anger, no hurt, no upset, letting it go completely.
Yes.
Great. No upset at all. No upset. Just love. Just great. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. What's the level in your neck? 0 to 10?
Less, like 2.
About a 2. Did I have? Great. Great. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. Bingo. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. And again, 0 upset, even having a reset towards your mom where you say, okay, reset. Okay, I get it. I understand it. I'm not judging it. I get it. And what's a reset? What's a reset? How could I instead create a loving, wonderful relationship? Because this is the other thing. Let me tell you. Okay, so let's say that you are voice that you're upset towards your daughters about the way you were raised, and then your daughters experience some of the same thing, and then they go, well, now I'm going to be mad at my mom for it. So you don't want to have that energy anywhere, and instead you love your mom, you love them. It's a reset. No upset towards her, towards that. Delete, 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 reset. Bingo. So I'm going to ask you to breathe, and your level of pain, 0 to 10. What's your level?
Like 1 or 2.
That's what I would say is about a bingo. So that's what I have is about a 1.2 right in there. So bingo, give me 1 second. So are you really going to be nice to Kim or no? Like really? Like, can you commit to that?
Yes.
100%?
I really can. Yes.
No guilt?
No.
No guilt?
I won't do it. No guilt.
Great, great, great. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. Thank you for letting me push a little bit. And I'm going to ask you to breathe. No guilt, just love, just kindness. You're changing, you're changing, you're changing. Real change, genuine change. You're changing. No guilt, just kindness, self-kindness. You've changed your judgments towards mom, towards self. Just kindness, loving support. And I'm going to ask you to breathe. Bingo. Great. And your level 0 to 10. What's your level?
Like not even 1.
That's what I was about a 0.4. So just so and bingo. So fantastic job with your energy.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And by the way, just to kind of, I know that for a lot of people, this may sound like absolutely impossible to do. And I don't know if I'm able to share my screen or not, but I could show you this under medical equipment that we can actually get the yeah. So I'm stumbling over my own words, but here, let me explain real quick. So after I healed myself, I thought people are going to think this is impossible. And that's exactly what I started doing is I started showing people how to use their own mind for healing. And I said, well, I need to show this under medical equipment because people are just not going to believe this is possible. And so I started, so just like we just did your neck pain, I have that under medical equipment where you can actually see it.
Wow.
Yes. So would you like to see on a scan? Can I share my screen or shall I just describe it? What's easier for you?
If you can show it right away, you can show.
Yeah.
We have a YouTube channel as well.
Absolutely. So I can absolutely show it because it's really, really incredible what we're capable of. And so here we go. So I will go ahead. Oh, it says host is not allowing me to share. So it's disabled. So let me,
It's okay.
I can explain, but basically in short, if you've ever had any type of a sprained ankle or an infection or anything like that, what happens is, of course, it can generate heat in the body. And so what I started doing is once I healed myself, I wanted to show it under medical equipment. So I started working with Dr. Hillary Smith, who does medical thermal imaging. And she's been able to scan people. So let's say somebody has neck pain. You can literally see on the scan that it's all red over their neck area.
Yeah.
And then I'll coach them to use their own mind. And as I do, you can literally see the scan turn from red to green as their pain goes away. And it's incredible. So I'll share with you guys some of the images and whatnot, but it's truly incredible what we're capable of. And so in other words, and the reason I say this is because for anybody who's listening, who hears Kim go, oh my God, like the pain goes from a 5 to barely there that quick. It seems impossible. And so that's the reason that I started sharing it under medical equipment so people could see it.
Yeah, to make it more believable, I guess. Wow. So
yes.
Kim, you're feeling all better in your neck?
interesting because I already have like felt like I've forgiven my mom because I know I feel what she went through. So I'm like, I was like fine with her. It was me that I still had a lot of work to do on. Like I realized that like I was, even though it doesn't make sense, I was like angry at myself for not feeling well.
So I was thinking this too. So if it was easier for you or easy for you to let go of maybe anger towards your mom for what happened, but you knew what it felt like as a kid or when it happened with you. It wasn't as a kid, it was when you were an adult, right? When
Mm-hmm.
she was going through it. Okay. So then you knew deep down what it felt like. And so maybe you felt like your kids must feel the same way that you felt with your mom when that happened with you. So you
Yeah.
felt even worse.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
Exactly. And if you, this is the thing. So there's technically, so I make it look really simple. So there's multiple sides of the emotion. So if you think about what I first said, as I said, do you feel like you're giving more in a relationship and it's not being reciprocated and it drains you and it's not feeling fully reciprocated? So that was the side that came with your mom as a child, where you felt like you were giving more love and wanting more love and it wasn't being reciprocated at the level that you wanted. And so that was that feeling. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that was one side of it. So then when you couldn't see that side, I just pointed at to the other side and said, okay, well, let's look at the part towards your kids, because
Mm-hmm.
the pattern shows up in different ways. So I just gave you a different, I communicated the emotion in another way of another side of it. Plus, what's also really profound is the guilt is also a huge piece. And
Mm-hmm.
so one way to kind of communicate this, if it is this is what I would say, is that there are always multiple ingredients. And the way to think about it is this: is somebody can have PTSD. They can have extreme PTSD and yet not be sick. Somebody else can have less trauma, less negative emotions, and have an illness. And so as I was going through my injury, I said, well, if emotions affect the physical body, and I look at this objectively, well, how is it possible then there are people with severe trauma who aren't
Mm-hmm.
sick? And what I began to figure out it was is basically it's like a combination of emotions. So a way to think about it is that if somebody wants to make cake and they have flour, they can't make cake. But if they have flour and mix it with eggs and butter and ingredients, or vegan eggs and butter and ingredients or whatnot, then they can make cake. And of course, illness is not cake. But the point is that different recipes have different illnesses. And so basically guilt was a piece, and then also that other piece with the mom, and then the self-judge. So there was multiple pieces, right, all in that. And the reason I kind of communicate that is because I want to emphasize that something that you said was really profound, Kim, and it's that you feel like you've already taken care of that emotion. And notice how even when we were working together, notice I pushed a bit, and I said, thank you for letting me push a bit. And even a little bit when Eden was trying to say like a little thing, I was like, oh, we're gonna go backwards if I don't. So that's why I was like speaking stronger of it and pushing a bit. And like, of course you are, right? Because I needed you to feel it more to get
Mm-hmm.
there. And
Yeah.
that's why I said that too.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Like go deeper. Let yourself go
go
deeper.
deep, right?
Yeah, I get it. That's very powerful. And I'm sure more will come up now, like clearing it.
Yes, and is that you're reinforcing it is going to be really important, because if not, likely the pain could come back by tomorrow, or your mom could call an hour later and it could come back. So I do want to emphasize that to keep the results, it requires a new patterned way of thinking and
Yeah.
feeling. And going back to the example of the woman with the abusive father can leave him and find the abusive boyfriend, boss, spouse, et cetera, like those patterns continue. So
Mm-hmm.
what can also happen is that the pattern can show up somewhere else. I call it like whack-a-mole, where it's like the pattern. So you'll really want to make sure that you've repatterned the emotion completely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I was going to ask about too, because it was a quick fix in a way, and how could she make this permanent? How could it permanently be gone? And you just answered that, because it's not, it takes more work than just that one process, right?
Like a state change
Yes,
of awareness.
yes, and I mean, have I worked with people like I actually have a video of a woman who I worked with under thermography
Yeah.
in a similar way for about a total of 15, 20 minutes, something like that. And that was 8 years ago. Her pain never came back. It's under
Yeah.
medical equipment, neck pain, done.
Yeah.
And I people all the time. And another woman I worked with had a tumor in her throat. We worked one session, an hour and 15 minutes. She showed up for surgery. Next day, the tumor was gone.
Wow.
Yeah, right. So all of the time I see people do that. And of course, everybody's circumstances are different. So if their mom comes in and triggers them an hour later, then yeah, so the biggest thing to know is it does take genuine change. Some people shift very quickly. Sometimes there's
Yeah.
layers that other people have. It really depends. Each
Okay.
of us are different.
That's
Mhm.
fair. That's fair to say, because I know we're going to have people listening who have the different circumstances, and what works for one may not work for the other. And some do have more resistance than others.
Well said. Well said. Some have
Okay.
different resistance.
Yeah.
Some have more layers. Kind of
Yeah.
like this. If you think about Kim for a moment, Kim, you and your mother are good now, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, you guys feel like a love fest. Now imagine for a moment if Kim was still not on great terms with her mom. She might be like, well, Brandy said that, but I mean. And so the fact that they are could help to do that. Now there's also because I also see there's a lot of guilt, and there's a pattern of guilt, and there's a pattern of being really hard on yourself about about your girls and whatnot. And that, like, if you said, all right, that's it, like, I'm not going to feel bad anymore about it, and you really like said, I'm taking this seriously, I would expect I would expect a nice change.
Right. Like catching myself when I'm getting into that state and shifting it.
Reframing, rewiring.
Right. Right. I know all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask, so you have your book, Master Your Mind and Energy to Heal Your Body, and you've had testimonials from Jack Canfield and Anita Morjani, who I think is amazing, and Sharon Stone and others, doctors. Can you share any examples of either working with them or what they've said, or from your book?
I, of course, cannot, but I can tell you that they are all really wonderful people. And I feel like my gift to check into energy is because of my integrity. I feel like integrity runs my life. I feel like, so I wouldn't be able to share, but I would say that, yeah, I would say that they're all amazing beings. And that's a great question, though.
Okay, and now I'll move on. My one of my questions is that actually a couple days ago worked with a new client, and I don't typically work with people who are stuck in a place of not being open to healing work, because it's just always what happens when I channel. They go right to the root of things, and they want people to work on their healing. But she was like in a place of, like, medically, physically, she has a lot going on since she had COVID a couple years ago, and feeling in a place like she just wants quick fixes and an answer. And that's just not how I work at all. But I actually mentioned to her, well, we're doing this interview, so I'm going to bring it up. But she has symptoms like the long COVID stuff, but also she's in a place where Kim, it reminds me of when you go through the darkest times, when she just wants to feel better. And what the spirit guides were coming through saying, you have to do the deeper looking at the patterns, and it's very similar to what you did with Kim. But she was very resistant to it, because there are people who just want that quick, I want to feel better now. Can't you give me a solution now? I've tried everything, like you did, Brandy. You tried everything. So with the COVID in particular, does this work with that too?
Yes. So I've worked with plenty of people with COVID, long COVID, all of that. Absolutely. And what I always really tell people is kind of like this. So if you think about Kim, so let's say from this, she said, okay, I'm going to walk around each day with a clear conscience, feeling like a great mother. My new pattern moving forward is I'm feeling like a great mother. I'm acknowledging the great things I am doing. I'm acknowledging my mother. And part of the thing you'll notice what I said is even to get that last little bit gone, like a reset, like moving forward. It's wonderful. It's loving. So if you think about it, I actually pushed her into the forward that was key for creating the shift.
Yeah.
So what I always tell people is actually not to go and delve into the negative. And so the way I put it is this, is and the way that I help people get results is this is key, is that our emotions control our consciousness. So if kind of like this, is that it, for example, if we're really, really, really in love with somebody, what do we see? We see all the good things automatically. We see all the wonderful things. Now, if we are pissed off at somebody and upset, and where we just had an argument, what do we see? All the negative, like the brain wants to fault find or go to the argument over and over. And it all happens automatically, right? So at a deeper level, if we're in fear, our brain will notice fear. If we're, whatever we're programmed for, hurt, abandonment, whatever it is, we see it. And we see more of it. So my point is part of the way to create a shift is creating a new consciousness. And so what I always ask people to do is I call it reverse emotional processing. So I say, instead of looking more at the problem, or instead of delving into all of the childhood stuff, that we become aware of whatever it is and make a radical shift forward. So even with Kim, we said, okay, look, we see this stuff. All right, reset, moving forward, nice to self. And so the first step to me is always, okay, well, when we identify the stuff, and I call it a 180 shift, we identify whatever the negative is, don't go into it. What is the 180 shift? Now, what happens is this, is let's say Kim says, all right, I am going to radically put in these positive emotions. I am a great mother. I am it. I own it. I feel it. I love it. And she's loving herself, being kind to herself, and continues to do it. Now, the next level would, as she does get this in, she would also want to go fully resolve the things in her subconscious mind towards her childhood, because there's still some hurt there and there's still some wounding. And so the process that I have, like I call it the gift method, and it starts with G, is get new healthy mind programming. So get your positive, identify what the problem is, and then basically free yourself from it. So free yourself, transform it. So it is, in short, with your client you're talking about, is that you would want to have somebody say, okay, well, yes, we want to move you to the positive right away. And so instead of going into the negative, because ultimately, and this is the way I do it, I know we all do things differently. So I'm just saying the way I do it is this, is that if we're looking at the negative emotion and we're looking at the negative childhood stuff, we can't shift our consciousness. It's like, if somebody goes to shift from anger to love, creating that shift. But if we just look at, oh, I was angry about this and angry about this and hurt about this and hurt about this, we can't get to that loving consciousness from that. But if we say, okay, I want to create a strong shift, I'm so in love, and now let me let go of this hurt also, that's how we shift our emotions and our emotion controlled consciousness simultaneously. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm doing to the same thing, because it's about identifying the root of why someone is stuck, what their blocks are. And then we move forward. We don't stay stuck in it. But my process is very different, but it's the same concept. So that's helpful though, because I know people need that. I think the society is very much in that, like, the quick fix, what is that term? I forgot what people call it, but it's
Amazon like same day shipping. Is that what it's called?
No, that too. No, but it's the instant gratification. So there's so much of that mindset going on. So this kind of thing that you're doing can address that for people. Right?
Yes. And honestly, the instant gratification, the way that I came to that awareness, so to speak, with health, is just multiple personality disorder. How a person can have different ailments when they're in different personalities. So yeah, I mean, but I mean, obviously, if she's also resistant to change at the same time, it's going to make it harder. That makes sense.
It's a process.
Thank you for listening to Talk Purpose and Truth podcast. Find out more at talkpurposeandtruth.com. And follow us at Talk Purpose Truth, Instagram and Facebook.